What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 19. I'm your host, Jennie O'Connor, and I write and create courses about mastering your mindset so you can stop settling for less, start asking for more, and finally do the thing that scares you. You know, like taking a leap, leaving a job that's soul-sucking to start an online business doing something you truly love. Exactly the kinds of things we talk about on this show. If you are already subscribed, you are the best. And if you are just tuning in for the first time, be sure to hit subscribe because today's episode is a two-parter. So you're definitely going to want to tune in next week to see if you match up with any of the working styles of the particular type of multipotentialite I'm going to describe in that episode. Turns out there are two very different modes of being multi-passionate, and I will get to that in a second. So today's episode is all about lifestyle design for people like us. Lifestyle design is basically what it sounds like. It means designing your life the way you want it to be. And the model differs for everybody based on their core values, their definitions of freedom and success, and ultimately what sorts of things they like to do with their time. So for people who like to do everything, it can get complicated. First, there's how to get all the things done, right? Then there's how to actually make a living. Then there's how to ignore the opinions of the masses who don't see us as successful. And then there's the problem of never being an expert and having nothing to show for our lives, or believing that to be the case. So I'm going to address all of these points today. And I'm also going to describe several different working styles of people with multi-passionate tendencies so that you can identify which type most describes you, because the fixes for each of these personality types are a little different. And because this episode has a lot of info in it, I made an episode freebie for you guys, and it has details of each type of Renaissance person and the tools each type needs to design the life of their dreams. So stick around to the end and I'll explain how to get that right into your hot little hands. So there are two types of everything enthusiasts, and I sort of derived these from Barbara Sher's book that I talk about in like every single episode, Refuse to Choose, but I have expanded upon them. So you may hear me use the term scanner interchangeably with everything enthusiast or multipotentialite or multipod. That's Barbara's term for people like us. So the two types that she identified were cyclical scanners and sequential scanners. So a cyclical multipod returns to the same interests again and again. So if, like me, you love wellness-related topics like yoga and gluten-free cooking and hiking and biking and dance, and you also like sewing and painting and floral design and anything crafty, and you enjoy meditation and spirituality and researching the history of the craft, and you love to write about all of these things, and you return to these same interests day after day, year after year, you are a cyclical everything enthusiast. If, on the other hand, you do your thing and you get really into it and you deep dive and you maybe even do the thing for a year or several, and then you peace out, veni vidi vici, you came, you saw, you conquered, you're done, you're on to the next thing, you, my friend, are what's known as a sequential everything enthusiast. So once you finish an interest, you move on and you don't look back. I don't know many sequential everything enthusiasts. So it'll be interesting for those of you listening as you're going through this to identify if you think that you're cyclical or sequential. I want to hear about it, especially if you're sequential. So obviously, there are different sets of problems for each type of multi-passionate person. So there are also 3 different types of cyclical scanners. So which of the following describes you the best? Person A, you feel like there are two people inside of you, the one who does the right thing and then the one who is free to live her dreams. So your struggle is you are plagued by either or thinking. You can achieve success or be happy. You can make money or do what you love. That's person A. Person B has tons of interests, and as a result of that is plagued by confusion and clutter and overwhelm. Worse than that, though, is the feeling of having nothing to show for their lives. So person B struggles with obviously creative clutter because you're always starting over. You don't get very far with your projects. And you've tried to narrow it down so that you could go really deeply into just one thing, but that always leaves you feeling stifled. Okay. Then there's person C. Person C has many projects in play at one time, but they're kind of a boss at it. So rarely cluttered or confused because they like to think fast and they love to solve problems. And that means that they are very often overrun with requests to do just that for other people. So overworked is definitely a sign of person C. The struggles for person C are that it's hard to say no when people ask for help. And it's also hard to care about things that don't have real life outcomes. So learning for its own sake rather than to solve a particular problem can seem frivolous to these people. But for them, if they keep using just this one part of themselves, the problem-solving side, the other part is bored. Even if they're fully engaged and super busy, they're not tapping into all of their strengths. So there's this sense of dissatisfaction that's going on. So when you think about those three types that I just described, does one of them like fit you to a T? Or are you a combination personality? Because it's very likely that a lot of us will feel like we fall into each of these categories to some degree. In any case, I'm about to give you tips for how to design your life no matter which type of polymath you align with. So let's say you really resonate with person A, and let's call her our dreamer because she longs for one life but feels tied to another, let's say, more responsible one. She very likely believes that she has a choice between two things, breaking her own heart and breaking somebody else's. And most of the time, these people have sacrificed themselves. If you identify with the dreamer, the first thing you have to realize is how restrictive either or thinking is. It instantly puts limits on your field of possibilities. And the limits aren't even true, but you're not even trying to imagine alternatives with either or thinking. And I do know actually quite a few people. And these are the people who, when you're like, well, why don't you try this? And they're like, oh no, I could never. I can't leave my job. That wouldn't work. Oh, well, why don't you try this? Oh no, that my mother would never approve. Oh no, I can't stop earning money. No. Like, not even being able to envision possibilities is definitely a sign of this person who's trapped in the dreamer's persona and unable to sort of escape. It's a shame when you're trapped here because you don't even try to imagine alternatives, and that's a damn shame because we are naturally hella creative, you guys. And when you engage in either or thinking, essentially your resourcefulness dies. So if you feel you can't live your dream life because you're tied to a dead-end job with only 2 weeks of vacation, here are some things that hopefully will help you keep some perspective. There are other ways to work besides the 2 weeks of vacation in the summer model. And what you need to do, if you are indeed a dreamer, is to just change your environment to give you more of what you need. So you could follow the school teacher life model. They have summers off. So you could take your summers off and pursue the dream that you don't feel like you have the time for during the school year, let's say. So you could do this by being an actual teacher or simply by finding work that you can do for 9 months out of the year, and then, take the remaining 3 months off. So like, what could that be? Replaceable jobs that you are kind of a dime a dozen and not necessarily career making. Service industry comes to mind. Entry level work in an office, retail. A lot of people choose to do these for a certain period of time until they've saved up a certain amount of money, or for 9 months out of the year so that they can go travel the remaining 3. That is a totally feasible option. If you have a skill that you can leverage into a high-paid short-term job, those do exist as well, but they tend to be pretty particular. Accounting, for example, you could cram a ton of like sleepless nights into a short period of time right around tax season and take like half the year off if you wanted to. Editing technical documents sometimes comes with deadlines, so there's a crunch period and you have to do it in a condensed period of time, and then you could just peace out after that. Deep sea fishing. I know that sounds kind of weird, but I once knew a guy who worked on one of those fishing boats that was just like that show, The Deadliest Catch. And he made bank, crazy money, and spent the rest of the year traveling. It's not for everyone. I completely understand. But the point here is to explore options. You can always take on extra seasonal work to allow yourself more time off. So if you live in an area with harsh winters, you can landscape during the seasonable months, or you can take on a retail job around the holidays and make some extra money that way. I had a friend when I lived in Massachusetts, Chad, who worked doubles all summer long, like literally almost every single day. He worked 2 jobs. So in the mornings, he would go and do a landscaping job, and in the evenings, he would go and work at a local Italian restaurant. And he did all of that because skiing was his one true love, and he wanted to spend the winters completely off skiing every day. So he made his life work that way, and it was worth it to him to work doubles in the hot heat, in the hot heat, not the cold heat, so that he could spend his time the way he wished in the winter. So that's always an option. You can find a good enough job. I have talked about the good enough job before, but I'm not sure that I've ever really defined it in detail. The good enough job is what you do for money, so you can spend all of your free time doing what you love. And the term, of course, was coined by Barbara Sher, but it's what literally every person that I've ever known in the service industry considers their service industry job. It's all of the people who wait tables so they can be actors, rock stars, screenwriters, some sort of other artistic pursuit that may or may not pay the bills in a timely fashion. The requirements of a good enough job are that it isn't unpleasant, it doesn't require more than 40 hours a week, it pays well, it provides security, at least to some degree, and it gives you the freedom to do what you want on your own time. Its only crime, really, is that it's just not enough to fulfill your life. One quick caveat, though, that I want to add here is that I have had many service industry jobs that were unpleasant or didn't pay well or didn't provide security. And if that's happening and it's causing you stress, then that is not your good enough job. Keep looking. Go find a different one. And luckily, with jobs like these, they're a dime a dozen. So you can earn a good living. I mean, especially as a bartender, and I know that's something that you do have to work your way up to. I'm not going to say that just anyone can go get a bartending job because that would be a outright lie. But you can make a very good living and still have a lot of free time to pursue what actually interests you. Maybe if you start to have these brainstorming sessions and stop limiting yourself to either or thinking, you will get lucky and realize there is a way to actually combine your loves. So my father did this. My father was a realtor, but in his heart, he was a golfer and he taught lessons and he was very good. And he got a job at this beautiful golf course in the desert he worked in the cart barn. It was like a groundskeeper, and he often had to go pick up someone's golf club that some rich guy had left on hole 9 and bring it to him. And it gave him an opportunity to rub elbows with these, maybe they were visiting, but they needed rentals that were seasonal. So he got to know these people. Maybe they lived out here and they got to know him and like him. So they would call him when they wanted to sell their house and move somewhere else. And meanwhile, he got discounted golf and drove around a golf course all day. I went with him one day and I just remember thinking, this is the life. If this really mattered to you, like, you have scored. You have figured out how to do it all and kind of, live parallel lives, but make it all fit. Like, he was still serving the real estate purpose while he was doing the groundskeeper job. So see if there's a way you can't finagle something like that. The possibilities are endless if you're willing to open that brilliant multipotentialite mind of yours and give it a shot and do some mind mapping. So if you choose this lifestyle design model and what keeps you going is knowing that engaging in your real dream is just right around the corner, keep that dream front of mind with like a wall calendar and sort of mark off the part of the year that you get to do the real thing and keep it where you can always see it. So you can almost like count down the days, or like if you're having a particularly hard day or work was rough this week, you can look up and you can see that like in a month and a half, you get to go to Bali for 3 months or whatever that thing is for you. It will always sort of give you something to stay excited about. And if your plan is to travel during that time, you might keep your bags packed. Or if, like my friend Chad, you dream of skiing, you might keep all of your gear ready to just grab and go. Like, now that you have a free moment, you don't have to think about it. It's just ready for you. So all of those things sort of help you like dip a toe in the thing that lights you up on a more regular basis, so you don't feel like you're dying on the vine. Also, if your day-to-day grind starts to get you down, use your scanner planner. I've talked about these before. Any old journal will do, but the point is something that you can write in to fantasize in written form about what you're going to do during that window of time that you've reserved just for your dream thing. So make plans for all of the things that you're going to explore during that time or fantasize about your trip. Just kind of let yourself, like I said, you dip a toe in and be there in your mind. And that will give you the impetus to keep going, even if what you're doing now isn't like your be all end all. Also, remember that the stuff that you dream about doing does not have to be a career. I think I'm going to say this in like every solo episode because we have such a tendency to think that, if we love pottery, we have to make a living making pottery. Maybe we could just make pottery on the weekends. It just takes a lot of pressure off of ourselves to not decide that every single thing that catches our interest has to be a moneymaker. It can always be a hobby. So it's just kind of important to keep that in mind. In fact, since we notoriously change our minds so much, it's actually kind of a good way to hedge your bets. Rather than trying to turn it into a career, you can just do it as a hobby, and then when you decide to drop it completely, no harm, no foul, right? So moving on, maybe you actually identified more with person B, and we're calling her the messy artist, a la Picasso. And I picked Picasso because he was famously messy, but he was also famously brilliant, and it sounded nicer than person B, the one who is easily distracted. In many ways, this is me. So I like absolutely feel like I can say this with love. I think actually a lot of the everything enthusiasts that I know fall into this category. So if this is also you, you are not alone. We're twinsies. So If you are a freewheeling artist with a lot of creative clutter who often feels overwhelmed, I have a solution that may actually surprise you. The fix, believe it or not, is structure. I know, it sounds a little bit crazy, especially if you really attach yourself to that freewheeling idea that I just said. But I have utilized this method and I love it. So I want to hear what you guys think about it. I use basically a school day schedule. So remember when we were back in school, and we actually really thrived under this sort of structure back in the day, because we'd do a thing for an hour and then we'd move on and do another thing that was entirely different for another hour. And so for people with minds like ours, it was really a good space for us. And it was later when we went to college where we had to narrow our focus, and then all of our classes were about that thing. And then we started to feel a little bit out of sorts at that point. So take the things that you're really interested in doing right now, but also make a list off to the side as you're creating this schedule of all the things that you enjoy that serve no purpose other than to bring you pleasure. So like meditating, for example. I mean, meditating serves a lot of purposes, but let's just say that for you, it's just a moment to calm yourself, but it's not necessarily something that you would put it on a schedule. So you can decide if you want an hour for these projects or you want larger chunks of time for certain things and smaller chunks of time for other things, but it's almost as if an imaginary bell is going to go off and you are going to switch modes. I find that this really works well for me. And I know there's a lot of scientific research regarding task switching being bad, but for a multipotentialite who gets bored easily, I think it's honestly awesome. I think it really is a good method for getting work done without getting bored. I mean, when I'm engaged in a school day schedule, I'm just kind of on fire the entire day. So then you need to try out your preliminary schedule and adjust it, because it's probably going to take several iterations before you hit the nail on the head. And school day schedule doesn't work for everybody, but if you work from home or you have an online business or you're retired, it might work really well for you. For other people, you might only be able to use your school day schedule on the weekends. You've got your, 9 to 5, but your weekends are free and you have all of these projects that you're interested in. Give yourself a little mini school day schedule, maybe just in the first part of the day, and then you can go spend time with friends in the afternoon and evening. But see if it doesn't work for you, because I feel like this has been one of the tools that I have utilized with the most success. And I just think it's a great way to touch all of the things that bring you joy every single week. A similar approach to the school day schedule is the physician's life model. So a doctor doesn't just come into the office every single day and do the same thing. Sometimes he'll see patients Monday and Tuesday and go perform surgeries on Wednesday and Thursday. Maybe he'll attend a conference a few times a month, and maybe he'll take 2 weeks a year to travel with Doctors Without Borders. You could use a template like this if you have a job that, takes you out of the house a couple of days a week, or even if you work for yourself, but you want to spend a couple days focusing on clients and other days focusing on personal projects. So you could sort of shift your school day schedule around to be different days reserved for different things. But you see the idea, they're kind of similar concepts, and maybe one of those will strike your fancy. Sometimes, however, the idea of structure offends an artist's sensibilities. What with the whole experience of being visited by the muse rarely fitting into a rigid schedule. I hear you. I definitely do. As we all know, you are more likely to make progress on an artistic project if you show up every day, whether the muse has arrived or not. But that being said, let's say you are in the middle of your hour doing work for a client, just let's say, and you are suddenly struck with inspiration to paint. Provided that you're not dropping the ball on anything important, I suggest that you tweak your school day schedule or your physician's life model schedule just a little bit and add in the inevitability of a random act of passion. So in those moments, you allow yourself to get pulled away when you're seized by a creative impulse, and then you take an hour to engage in it, or a week, or however long it keeps your interest, again, provided you're not, missing deadlines. And then when you're no longer interested, or when the inspiration dries up, you go back to what you should have been doing. You just kind of pick right up where you left off. That way you have a general sense of structure, but also you don't have to resist the inclination to chase after something sparkly. Like if it's truly calling to you, I think that it's sort of soul crushing to ignore that and turn on your heel and walk the other way. I think that will lead to unhappiness, so don't do that. And what's great about this is you don't have to feel guilty about engaging in something that has captured your attention, because you've literally built permission into your life model. So one of the biggest problems for the messy artist is feeling like you have nothing to show for yourself or for your life. So here are some ways to remedy that. For starters, set yourself goals that span a long time, let's say a year or 18 months, and then plan something celebratory to mark those accomplishments. So it'll keep you on track and give you something to look forward to. Barbara suggests throwing a New Year's Eve progress report party, which I think is a really fun idea. But you could do an art show, or you could just get your family together and show them what you've been working on. It doesn't have to be anything crazy big, but I think making it a little bit daunting makes you more likely to meet your goals by that deadline. So bear that in mind. And if you throw the New Year's Eve progress report party, you can invite your guests to celebrate their wins too. I just think it's sort of a fun new tradition around New Year's, and I could definitely get behind that idea. Celebrating your accomplishments rather than dwelling on what you don't have. I'm looking at you, New Year's resolutions. Just seems like a great idea, don't you think? So as you work to accomplish these goals that you've set, keep a visual representation of time versus like milestones hit. So this is important. So you are constantly aware of what you've accomplished so far, because that's such an easy way for us as multipotentialites to get down on ourselves. So I use a task manager called Nozbe. I have been using it. God, it was referred to me by Michael Hyatt like a decade ago. I love this thing. You can color code your projects. At the end of the week, you can see every single thing that you've checked off, so you can actually see visually how much you got done. I have it set up so that I get emails that say, like, you achieved 120% of your tasks last week or something. You're awesome. It really, really helps with imposter syndrome to have something like this. And you may already have a task manager that you use, but I'm going to include a link to that in the show notes. If that's something that you would want to check out, I highly, highly recommend Nozbe. It's a great, great system. I also make a lot of use of a rotating priorities board. So you can keep this guy literally right next to your yearly goals calendar, so you can see what you've been like slacking on. So maybe you've been super engaged in your painting project, but you've completely neglected the book that you want to write. You can decide at that point, since you've gotten behind on the book, to move that priority to the top. And I use different colored sticky notes. So I can move them around so I know which is going to be my focus project for the upcoming week. I really love it. I really think that those two, the school day schedule and the rotating priorities board, are like my two favorite tools that I utilize all of the time. The last tool for this particular personality type, our messy artist, is one I discussed in episode 12, the Being Busy is Bad for You episode. It's a tool that Barbara calls an avocation station. which is cool because it rhymes, but it really means a place to be messy. And it's where you keep all of your tools, your supplies, your equipment for a particular project. So it can be a rolling file cabinet. It can be a craft table that you just leave all of your supplies on top of that's behind a room divider so that it doesn't make your room look too messy. It can be a desk that has doors that you can close so it actually looks like a cupboard when it's not in use. And, obviously the dream is to just have an art studio with space for all of our projects just left out where we stopped so we can pick up right back where we started when we go back. Like that's the goal that I'm going for, but I suspect that most of us don't have that kind of space yet. So these are smaller, more compact ways of doing the same thing without literally letting your projects take over your entire living room. So if you're a messy artist, you may be best suited to have an online business or a consulting situation of some kind. Use whatever experience you've accrued up to this point in your life to see if you could consult for companies that you like, the companies you've worked for in the past. Or you could also just get a good enough job. That's a very feasible option so that you could spend your off time engaged in the millions of other things that you'd prefer to be doing. You could consider multiple income streams. So when I lived in Los Angeles, I was a private chef, a bartender for hire, a dog walker. I was a lot of different things, and I think a life like that could suit a lot of everything enthusiasts. I often laughed because when it came time to file my taxes, I had 100 different W-2s. But I actually got the dog walking job and some of the other kind of random gigs by working for a site called TaskRabbit, which is literally made for people like us. I remember when my mom turned me on to it being like, this is the coolest thing ever because I could do a different job every single day and never get bored. It is like Uber for people who need things done. So right now, I know that it's only in major cities, but if you live in a major city or close to one, it's definitely something to look into. It works the same way the Uber app works, so you get pinged with different jobs as they come up, and you just kind of jump on it, and then it's yours, and you go do the thing right at that moment. But people can also hire you specifically for certain things, or you can search in different industries. I mean, they even have plumbers on there. So people with actual professional certifications, but who just get extra gigs via this app called TaskRabbit. Truly, it was a godsend for me. And what was crazy is I just stopped. I would meet people doing dog walking jobs, and then I would just jump off the app and they would hire me afterwards. We wouldn't even go through the app anymore. That's probably illegal. Forget that I said that. But you get my point. It's actually sort of perfect for people that get bored easily or want to have a lot of different variety in their lives. Okay. Lastly, let's say you identified more as person C, and we're going to call person C our problem solver. If you are a problem solver, you are actually fairly well organized, but often overcommitted. And very likely you have forgotten how to play, which in this case means just letting your mind wander, truly. If this is you, the first thing you simply must do, this is a non-negotiable, is the exercise I'm about to describe. I want you to imagine that you're on a deserted island with enough food to last a few days until you're rescued, and you're definitely getting rescued, so you don't have to worry about setting a fire and making a smoke signal. The boat is coming and you know this. But meantime, let's say it's coming in 3 days. You have no one to talk to, you have no problems to be solved, and you have nothing to work with. You basically have to engage in forced stillness. So sit with your journal or your scanner planner until something catches your attention. And it may take a minute because you're not used to your brain having nothing to chew on. But if you sit, it will happen. And when it does, just start writing about it. Give yourself 15 or 20 minutes to do this exercise. It's so important to do, especially, and a lot of people I think are probably going to resist doing it, but that makes it even more important. What you resist is the thing you need in that moment. But it's important because it creates an open space away from problem solving for ideas to generate. It is so easy to forget that non-directed thinking is an amazing way to find things you didn't even know you were looking for. It's actually a fact that theoretical scientists come up with more unique solutions and are nominated for more Nobel Prizes than applied scientists who are actively working to solve a problem, like combating an infectious disease. And this is literally why. Theoretical scientists are often the ones who come up with cures for the diseases because they just spend time in la la land, and that's when some of the best ideas come through. So once you've done this exercise once, consider building it into your everyday life. And what I mean by that is like set an alarm that reminds you to disengage from a problem solving session just to gaze out the window. And a lot of people who are problem solvers think that they're doing this when they're like on a walker in the shower, but actually force the time on yourself to not be problem solving. Because it's almost a different brain that comes out to play, and you need to let that brain come out. You will be more well-rounded and you will feel more satisfied if all of the parts of you are getting utilized on any given day. I know personally that my creativity is dulled. So you can do this once a day or once an hour, but just make sure that you do it every single day. And I know I can be guilty of living in problem solving mode and feeling like coming out of it is a frivolous waste of time. I'm actually very bad at beating myself up about this. But I also know for a fact that my creativity is dulled when I'm like this. My life is less vibrant, and all work and no play makes me dull as fuck. So don't be like me. Give yourself the space to play and to breathe. All right. As for what jobs best suit someone with this personality type, problem solvers are designed to have a lot of roles. So being stuck in one is likely not going to suit you. An ideal situation would be one where you are in charge of troubleshooting something by learning how to fix it, then improving upon it with your own unique ideas, then teaching the method to others to implement, and then you get to go do the next thing. Another position, another problem. You can even start the whole process over again. Barber calls this the LTTL method: learn, try, teach, leave. So jobs that would be ideal for you, if you were a teacher or trainer. I have a friend who works for a major corporation, just developing the programs that teach the other executives how to manage their departments. That would be a great job for somebody like us. If you were an efficiency expert, right? You could go into different industries completely, but because you just know how to make them a well-oiled machine, tighten up the ship, but you'd still have different experiences, and you'd still be able to problem solve and teach people how to implement your solutions. You could start a non-profit incubator for creative startups. If what you're good at is helping people get their businesses off the ground, but then you just want to go once it's off and running, that's something to consider. Again, look into TaskRabbit or look into starting a company where you are someone who is like a Gal Friday. You will just do the thing that somebody needs done, the errand that needs running, the stockroom that needs cleaning, the grocery shopping that needs doing. I did a lot of weird shit. I waited in line at the Tesla store so some guy could be the first person in line to buy the new Tesla when it came out. I wrote Christmas cards for a company to send out to all of their clients, and I had to sign it from like 6 different people. It is really hard to forge 6 signatures and make them look different. But I mean, fun if you like to do different things. Of course, not all of your jobs on TaskRabbit will be problem-solving things, but you can pick and choose what industries you align with, like I said, and you can pick and choose what jobs you accept. So it could provide like variety and also make you feel like a hero every day. So guys, that was a lot. Now you can see why sequential everything enthusiasts need their entirely own episode, which will be next week. I'm just trying not to make your head explode right now. So if you want the worksheet that outlines the different types of everything enthusiasts that I described in this episode, along with what jobs are best suited for each type and what tools you should use if that describes you, you can grab that at jennieoconnor.com/lifedesign1, all one word, no hyphens, no nothing. Remember, it's Jennie with an IE, not a Y. It's O'Connor with an OR, not an ER. And so that's jennieoconnor.com/lifedesign1. I also have a rad word of the day for you guys today. I'm excited about it. It is Sockdolager. Have you ever heard this word? Like, where do these freaking words come from? Sockdolager. Who even says that? Sockdolager, it's spelled exactly how it sounds, means an exceptional person or thing. It also means a forceful blow, but I'm going to focus on the first definition, an exceptional person or thing. I like to think that we, as multipotentialites, are all Sockdolagers, and we are finally beginning to see ourselves properly, rather than through the what's wrong with you, why aren't you a specialist lens. And I'm hoping that this show is contributing to that. I'm hoping that the octopus movement that my friend Perry has started is also contributing to that. I hope you are starting to feel heard and better understood. So I really hope that today's episode was helpful for you. And don't worry if you don't feel like I've nailed your personality type just yet, because that will happen in the next episode. I promise. I sometimes don't think that sequential everything enthusiasts realize that they are, in fact, everything enthusiasts. So if you know anyone who might benefit from listening to next week's episode, or this one for that matter, please share the love. Like, I would be so grateful. Your support, you guys, is what helps my show get to the listeners who most need it in their lives. The Sockdolagers who need these words in order to see themselves clearly. So obviously, subscribe if you haven't yet done so, and leave me a review if you like what you're hearing. I would so appreciate it. Thanks again for being here with me, you guys. I wish you all an amazing day. I will talk to you soon. Take care.